Hello, I am Isaac, and I am doing my presentation on the Silk Road, which is a transportation technology that was used to connect Asia across the Caucasus Mountains into Europe. So, what is the Silk Road? It is a bunch of networks, and these networks were trade routes for silk and a bunch of other things. Like I said before, it links Eurasia, uh, and it's connected Europe to Asia. The Silk Road, was both a land and on both land and water, going from the Chinese frontiers to the Mediterranean coast. As you can see, it goes from China through to the Mediterranean into Rome. The Mediterranean greatly helped in developing trade for these empires or civilizations. It- The Indian Ocean was important in defining the Silk Road, as it was very integral to the Silk Road, where there was trade on the Indian Ocean, as seen before with Indian Ocean. There was a large network in the deserts that would be around the Arabian Peninsula and through Iran and uh, Tibet and Western China, and uh, it operated for more than 1,000 years, specifically from the first to second centuries BC, all the way up until like 13th century. Uh, And the name for the Silk Road is only a recent phenomenon, as the name was created by Ferdinand Richthofen, which is in 1877, for the trade routes that were opened by the Han Dynasty in the first to second centuries BC, when the Han Dynasty created the technology that is the roads in the Silk Road and the trade routes. The Han Dynasty established the Silk Road for trade, and this is during China's wars with nomadic tribes, where there would be nomadic tribes in the steppes, so probably around like Kazakhstan, Uz Uzbekistan, uh, Mongolia, modern day Mongolia, in that area in the steppe. Uh, and they were people who were would not stay in one place, and they would travel around the steppe and growing their own food and such, and Chinese dynasties would go to war with these nomadic tribes. uh Goods traded from the west include horses, grapes slash wine, dogs, animal skins and furs, honey, fruits, gold and silver, slaves, and armor and weapons. And goods traded from the east would include silk, tea, dyes, spices, bronze or and gold artifacts, medicine, rice, paper, and gunpowder. So the most predominant good that I would say for the Silk Road is the good that is in the namesake of Silk Road, so silk, uh, imported from specifically China to there would be imported to the Byzantium, so modern day, I'd say in the western part of the Anatolian Peninsula and spreading westward, and and a lot of silk to Western Europe as well. So basically Europe. Um, Paper and gunpowder would also be from China, and then a lot of these things are from China or India or anything in Eastern Asia up to trade with Western Europe, all the way to Western Europe. So, the Silk Road was the premier trade route in history that allowed for globalization. There were global interactions, and ideas and goods were spread on the Silk Road. So, the Silk Road, as I said, was uh, for over 1,000 years, and it was the greatest trade route in the old world, minus the Americas, because the old world is where everyone that was could globalize or connect to other empires or dynasties before the modern nation state could connect into one another and trade. Um, and it was the best route for, I mean, Asia and Europe are very culturally different, so they could import a bunch of cultures and religion and other and then goods, of course. Uh, yes, ideas and goods. The Silk Road made it possible for civilizations in Eurasia to not be geographically isolated. So rather than being making local commodities and making local things, they could also trade upon empires and civilizations and dynasties, and they were able to trade these things uh, and get imports and export their own goods for what they wanted, and it would make their economy more flourishing. Uh, these civilizations were interconnected, as I was saying before. They were globalized, so the interconnectedness of the world was kind of prevalent. Although this is before like the real modern globalization was the concept of modern globalization in around 1492 with the expansion and the years of exploration. Um, the hmm, the yes, in these civilizations that had large cultural differences and allowed for a cultural exchange, which I said before, Europe and Asia very different. There are two different continents on the Eurasian landmass, and that allows for these cultures to be different, and also they would have um, things that they would have to mine or create, or they would like silk that would be like mostly from China, for example, or gunpowder, and they because geographically that's where it was easiest to get them, and they were able to use that to their benefit and exchange these cultures and have these cultural connectedness and through the Silk Road, and they could trade these cultural differences for other things in other cultures and different geographic areas, such as silk for honey, for example. Honey from the west for silk in the east. Um, there were global interactions. The Chinese encountered the Greco-Bactrian kingdom, which was a Hellenistic remnant of Alexander the Great's former conquered lands. So Alexander the Great, uh, famous for reaching eastward, dominating different places, and trying to expand the Greek Empire through the Hellenization process. Uh, then, uh, and the Chinese encountered a kingdom that was a remnant of this old empire, through the Silk Road. Then, through the east, most notably China, importing silk, the Byzantine Empire had started its own silk industry. So, through an import from China, Byzantium, which was a Western civilization, was able to start creating its own silk industry, which is a cultural interaction. And yes, silk was very important and had done in Byzantium what it did for 2,000 years prior in China, which is not surprising because it would start, they got silk and China had silk before. They would do exactly what China did with their silk. and do that with in the Byzantine Empire. Uh, Ch- in China, silk prior to the trade was a large secret from other cultures and civilizations, more so, for about 2,000 years. And Alexander the Great's men, the conquerors, for Hellenization in the west to the east, heard of the silk in India. So they were in India and they heard on the Silk Road about the silk. Egypt also picked up cargoes of silk in India to take back to Egypt. So they went to this through the Silk Road to India and got silk and brought a bunch of it, a mass amount of it, to Egypt. Why is this important? Because without the globalization between these civilizations, these goods would not be spread to the rest of the world. Without these cultural exchanges and these exchanges of goods, they would simply not be spread across to each other. Everyone would be as before, it would be a bunch of enclaves, and they would have all their local goods to use and not be able to strengthen their economies through goods that were in other geographic areas and empires and civilizations. So these goods traded globally strengthened these civilizations' economies. There were cultural and intellectual exchanges, not just goods, and these would include religion, arts, philosophy, technology, language, science, architecture, and probably more. Uh, yeah, so they would get Eastern civilizations would get art and or philosophical ideas or ideologies or science, greater scientific knowledge from these Western civilizations, so they could work together for more scientific revolution. Western Europe had access to Eastern developments, so it would be true for Eastern developments in technology and science and art and all these other developments that are more so ideolog ideological or intellectual. Yes, it would be more intellectual. And they would get inventions from the Islamic world, which would be like at that time probably more so just the Middle East. Uh maybe Egypt, maybe. Uh then to connect to more of globalization with the Silk Road, these intellectual exchanges can be classified as idioscapes. So, idioscapes are also concatenations of images, but they are often directly political and frequently have to do with the ideologies of states and the counter ideologies of movements explicitly oriented to capturing state power or a piece of it. Now, this quote more so is used to kind of more so define i- idioscapes where it would be ideologies of states, even though the modern nation state did not exist. And these ideologies of more so civilizations could be traded or more so given to civilizations in a different part of the world. Uh, yeah. And then, although these are empires and dynasties, rather than the modern nation state, there are ideologies that are spread over the Silk Road. So that kind of explains that quote. And different ideas other than ideologies were imported, such as religion, science, and art. Those are examples of idioscapes, more so, and all of these intellectual and cultural exchanges are more so idioscapes, with actually the intellectual exchanges more so as they would be ideas and scientific advancements and philosophical advancements and so on and so forth. Uh, and then This the Silk Road actually led to a part of it to colonialism. as a lot of these exchanges led to a European want for space in the East because they have these goods that they can get and make, and why can't they just have the geographic location and just do it themselves? And yes, this is due to the resources in the East. I hope you liked that, and goodbye.